Thank you for tuning in for the second episode of the K-Rad Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Chris with a K. We're here with the amazing Michael Beck. Super excited to have him on tonight. He's the owner of SoundVision Recordings. Been a producer here in Arizona for about 20 years, and we've cut records with him. He's awesome, and super excited to pick your brain. So thank you so much for coming on.
I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So to start things off, why don't you tell me a little bit about NAMM and a little bit about kind of your recording setup and how you came about acquiring your gear or...
Okay. Well, I mean, as far as, any engineer will tell you that the gear thing it's never ending. It's a constant upgrade. I've been fortunate in that I've done this for a while. Mm-hmm. So, and done it at a good level for a while. So I've been able to listen to a lot of gear, know what it sounds like, know why this piece sounds different than this piece, and what to apply it to.
Right.
So I've been fortunate in that way, and then it's really just about it's kind of a color palette. So
right.
Your color palette just comes in where, a Trident mic pre sounds different than a Neve mic pre, which sounds different than an SSL mic pre, and that's all well and good, but you have to know, okay, if this sounds different than this, then what do I use these on?
Right.
What do I use different mic pre's and different mics?
What will contrast and help to enhance the sound? And so, because you definitely have a sound. I feel like that's something that multiple people have kind of told me from like our records, that it sounds almost a little 90s, but then there's a lot of 70s influence in there too.
That's probably me.
Yeah, and so I think that's definitely your vibe. But kind of backing up a little bit, can you tell me like how you got started? Like where was day one, Michael Beck? Like did you go to a concert and you were inspired? Was it a chick thing, or like what was your why? Why'd you jump into music at first?
Music is and don't let anybody tell you different. Music is always a chick thing. That's where it starts. People will tell you that it's different things, but it's a chick thing. That's what it is.
Okay.
It quickly grows from there if you are going to become a musician.
Sure.
If it stays a chick thing, then you stay in it until you get the chick, and then you probably get out of it.
And it fizzles out a little bit.
Exactly.
I think that should be a true passion, because I feel like
it starts as a chick thing.
Fair enough. That's your why, and I love it. When it comes to finding your passion, finding your sound as an artist, what was your role in your first band, and like your kind of like what was your sequence of bands until you first? Because I know that was it North Dakota or was it Nebraska?
Yeah.
Where you had a successful band, you were going on tour all the time.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was the progression like of how many projects you were in?
The first band I was in high school. I was probably 15. I was actually a guitar player, a rhythm guitar player.
Okay.
And we were a 4-piece band. So myself, guitar, bass player that sang, guitar player, really good guitar player. Kevin Danzig. Hey,
Shout out Kevin.
Kevin actually wound up being in a 90s band that had some success called Size 13.
Okay.
They did a track called, now I can't remember. Anyway, so, but even in high school, just phenomenal guitar player. He was an Eddie Van Halen freak. And
wow.
Did it really well. And so we had this band, Witchcraft was the band.
Witchcraft. I could totally see that.
It was very
Did
metal.
You have long hair back then,
Of course.
Right on.
So we started out, and you play covers. That's what you do. That's how you get going. And we had some originals as well. But the bass player sang a lot, and I don't know. I should probably ask, but as we progressed, every time we would do a new song, it would be, hey, let's let Michael sing this one, because I always liked vocals and I love harmony.
Right.
I've always loved harmony, but I was never the singer. And every time a new song would come up, hey, let's do this Scorpion song, or let's do this Motley Crue song, let's let Michael sing it. And I don't know if it was because I was a good singer or if I sucked as a guitar player. Could have been either one.
They're like, we got to find something else to try it out. Just test out the vibe, test the waters. No, that's cool. I remember like the first, because I started out playing when I was 16, just playing the guitar. Like I got my guitar, tuned everything to drop C, and learned every single System of a Down song that I could. So shout out to Surge, but huge influence. So that was the new metal like trend when that was popular was like
took off.
That was right when I started playing the guitar. But then eventually I was like, hey, I kind of want to play with other people, and not too many people played that kind of music.
True.
So kind of had to relearn like the acoustic guitar and basic chords and teach yourself to sing and play at the same time.
You go back and fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and it's like I feel for artists that maybe want to try to do that or want to sing, I really recommend just doing like basic lessons to practice scales, and even if it's not in a traditional sense, just if you've ever had any curiosity, because that helps build your confidence when you can just go in there and do that. So I feel like any artists that are like teetering with the idea of doing vocals or maybe doing some backup vocals, like just go out and do it. Like
absolutely
find a teacher and play some piano.
Learning an instrument is absolutely a requirement if you're going to be a good singer. Because
absolutely.
Learning, piano, guitar, whatever it is, even, bass as well, you learn rhythm, you learn swing, you learn placement, and you learn chording.
Right.
And I mean, that's what vocals are. It's just one part of the chord. So you learn all that from the instrument and then apply it backwards, and it definitely helps your vocals.
I agree wholeheartedly, 1,000%. So speaking of recording and just because you've been so active in the local scene here, who are some of your favorite projects or artists that you've been working with locally that you've been impressed with, or you think that, if they keep it together and keep moving,
there's the key,
that they could have a shot? Is there anyone that kind of shouts out to you?
There is. There's a really good band here in town that I've done 2 records for. First one is out. The second one is on the way, called Atom's Fall. ATOMS Fall.
Atom's Fall.
Great band. Kind of, a little bit of Breaking Benjamin type, but also different. With like Breaking Benjamin meets Alter Bridge. Great singer, really good guitar player.
Cool.
Yeah, very good. I just finished a record for a guitar player named Michael O'Reilly. His solo record is coming out, and that was fun because it's a guitar record. There's no vocals, so
right.
It's kind of cool, change of pace, and he's a really good, diverse player. So
yeah, vocalists can be hard to work with sometimes, right?
They're a pain in the ass.
Talking about me.
Pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's got to be right. It's your voice as an instrument and getting it tuned right and going over the takes and intonations. Like, you've got to be tight. And I think
it's a physical thing. It's different than playing guitar and drums. I mean, although drums they're all physical instruments to a point, but vocal, you don't have an instrument other than your physical instrument.
Right.
So
you can play the guitar perfectly fine with a sore throat.
You absolutely can.
A little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. No, 1,000%. And, I was going to ask you too, so I want to know more about your band back in the day. I want to know I want to know what your sound was like and like what the feeling was like of progressing like to those different steps where it was like, your first EP or like your first record. And then the first time opening up for that band, like those feelings, like getting out on stage, like describe some of that to me. My
first touring band, that did any kind of touring, was a band called Brigade. Early 80s. We, toured Satellite. This is from Nebraska. So we did a lot of Satellite stuff. We'd go out for a week, maybe 2. And that was my first introduction into getting into a van and hitting the clubs
and doing it. And what was that like that bridge to jump from the part-time job making music to full-time music? What was talk about that jump, because I feel like that's the scariest part.
It absolutely is. And that's where you see 90% of musicians fall to the wayside, is absolutely right there. And then the other 9% die off once they get out there. I mean, it really is. It's a jump.
Right.
Because making your living through music is different than being a local band. It just is.
Absolutely.
And you can't teach the kind of things that you'll learn. You can't. There's no book. You just have to figure it out on your own.
Right.
And as you go out and tour, that's why it used to be back in the day when you would get signed, literally the first thing a label would do would be to throw you out on the road. And
right. See how you do.
Because you either come back a stronger band or you come back with body bags. Wow. And so the whole idea was, and it was a good idea, was put you out on the road for 6 weeks. If you come back and you're a stronger band, cool. If not, I just saved $100,000.
That's fair. And I feel like in today's climate, it's different, but it's still, that still holds a lot of truth, because I know that it's
Absolutely.
even more so now because, and I really wanted to get into this with you too, because the industry shifted so much to live performances,
yes.
and these bands have to be out on the road 300 days out of the year to make a living, and a decent living at that.
And it's not just that it shifted to live performance; it's that the record sales part of it just went away. I mean, there's in the early days you had records, you had an LP, you had vinyl, and then that was replaced with cassette, and then that was replaced with CD, and when they went from CD to internet or on your phone,
Napster, iTunes,
there's nothing to replace it with because you're not buying that.
Right. And I was going to ask you too. I feel like it's empowered a lot of do-it-yourself recording and a lot of do-it-yourself artists nowadays. But now it seems like the game is all social media, getting your music out there, and then it's just the whole kit and caboodle for the most part. Like if the sound is there, everything else follows. But if you're a great band and you don't have a great social media marketing plan, I feel like you've got no shot, because labels, for the most part, at least from what I've seen, haven't really been interested in bands unless you already have an established audience.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's a huge hurdle in the climate nowadays.
Absolutely true.
And so it's like you have an opportunity because you have an open format to do that with your own postings on like Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and all of that. SoundCloud, Reverb Nation, like getting your music out there and connecting with people. But you almost have to be like a professional social media, like brand advertising person as a band, which is
you've always unique. You always had to be in marketing. I mean, because music is music. It's a certain thing. It's a great thing. It's a passionate thing. But at the end of the day, it's a widget. It's a widget. Right. And no matter what it is, whether it's a phone, a pen, a candle, or music, if you make it and you want to make money at it, you have to sell it. I mean, it doesn't just happen. Right. It's not a build it and they will come thing. It doesn't work like that. So you have to market it. And that's always been true. Mm-hmm. The difference is, and this is my opinion, is that, back in the day, I know I sound so old.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Back in my day. I remember. Get off my lawn.
2 bams. No, it's still a thing. I love 2
Back in the day, the way that you did it was you went out and you fought and you played in clubs and you toured and you did whatever you could on your own until you got signed.
Right.
That was the formula. And there was no plan B. You couldn't really do it on your own. You had to do it at least at a certain level. To get noticed
and someone to pick you up.
To get signed.
Right.
And if you didn't get signed, you didn't do it. Well, that's the yin and the yang now, is now you don't need to do that. There is no distribution.
Absolutely.
The distribution is on that thing that's sitting on the table right there. It's the internet.
Yep.
So that's the difference, is that now you have your own distribution. The bad part of that, or the other side of it, is that at least in my opinion, for good, bad, or indifferent, and there was a lot of bad if you were signed to a label. I mean, there was a lot of bad going on, but they were still sort of a gatekeeper that keep, you had to be at a certain level to be a signed band. You might not like it, and you might not like what they were signing, but you still had to be good. You had to be at a certain level.
Absolutely. You have to have it.
Right. And now you don't.
Right. Now anyone can put out anything at any time, which is empowering and a good thing. But I think it's kind of like it's flooded the market, so to speak. So I know a lot of... and
it's flooded it with a ton of crap.
Yes, that's true. And I think it was Brandon Flowers, the frontman for the Killers, and he said, there's a reason why there's not another like Interpol.
Yeah.
It's because if they were there, like we would know about it.
Right.
And I think that holds a lot of truth. But I also think that artists need to develop. And I think that sometimes that takes time. You have to find the right mix of people.
But again, if you developed within a label with, on tour, doing records, you made that your living, it was a different thing because you were developing at a certain level. You were starting at a certain level. And now you don't have to be in that level. You were talking about that jump from being a guy that works a job and plays in a band to a guy that plays in a band.
Huge difference. Huge jump.
That jump made a huge difference in who you were as an artist. Because it does. It lets you be an artist 24 hours a day.
Right.
So now that you don't have to do that, I think the quality of the art has gone down. And there's so much out there because you can. Now there's a plan B. You don't have to be signed to a label, and in a lot of ways you're better off not. But you still have to work it. And a lot of bands don't, and they put out crap in sounding, crap songs, crap musicians. And again, back in the old day, when you would be in a record store and you would be thumbing through the record bins and, oh, this sounds cool. I'll look at that. I'll buy that. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. And whatever you picked up back then out of a record bin, even if you didn't like it, it was a certain quality. It sounded
Sure, there
good.
was like a barrier to entry. Like the barrier to entry was a lot higher. And now that threshold has gone down, with people being able to put everything on SoundCloud or Reverb Nation or Spotify, the access to be able to do that because you can self-distribute. And the internet is a powerful tool. And so it's unleashed all of that
just
into the universe, so everyone can do that. But at the same time, I absolutely agree with you. It's flooded.
You have to wade through all this shit,
minutia,
to find something that A, you like, and B, is good. And that's a small niche, in a bigger pool. So, as good and bad as labels were, they offered a service that we don't have anymore, and it's a bit of a shame.
Right. And how do you feel about, because I discovered this, that with those streaming platforms, most of the record label own huge amounts of stock in those companies so that they can keep the amount of plays per stream at an all-time low. And so I think that, while that barrier of entry is easier, they still absolutely control the market and dominate from that standpoint, from a monetary standpoint. So it still makes sense to go out and try to get signed. It's just that you have to get up to that level to where they're piaking interest. That's changed.
And that's where, again, it's always been hard to make it as a musician, as a living. But now, there was that thing that Peter Frampton put out not too long ago, 55 million streams. I mean, this is Peter Frampton.
Right.
There's not a whole lot more on the top of the heap than Peter Frampton.
Right.
55 million streams, he got a check for $1,700. Wow.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely.
So somebody's
ridiculous.
making more money.
No, absolutely. And you got to think, like, as a purveyor of music, like, your product is music. Don't get me wrong, I love streaming services, but as your product is the artist's work.
It's your art.
The other artist's work, they should get paid for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is what's preventing a lot of these great artists from being able to, because there's so many great, talented people that they stop from one reason or another, and a huge part of it is financial.
Yes.
And it sucks because there's so much talent, and there's so many people that could do it, and that I've seen.
You have successful bands that are out there that can't make a living.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
It's absolutely wrong. And I feel that it's gotten cheapened. It's almost like it's expected to be free. And
a big problem right now is that the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, you can't put it back. So
right.
There has to be, at some point, somebody will figure out another model to make art sellable. At least I hope so.
Agreed. That's what I was going to ask you as a follow-up was, do you see there ever being a second coming or like reincarnation or
there has to.
Evolution of the artist, kind of like a cycle? Because I know that back in the day, just like you were talking about earlier, how it went from vinyl to, cassettes to CDs, to live EPs and then just streaming.
Right.
It makes you wonder if that cycle will ever come back to where record sales will be a thing.
It has to be a model that makes the art sellable.
And you know what I think would be awesome? A couple things here. I think that like virtual reality concerts, where it's like as VR becomes more of a thing, if you could have a camera live feed, so you put on a VR head system, and you had like a great speaker setup or some headphones, like an immersive experience at a live concert, like pay-per-view almost, to pay to watch those shows from home.
I think people are almost already doing that because most people watch their concerts like this through their phones.
That's true.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Actually, when I was on tour with Red Dragon Cartel, we were in Toronto, and I don't remember where it was in the show, but we were getting ready to start a song, and I looked out, and everybody's doing this. And not only are they holding their phones up, but they're looking at their phone. Looking
at the concert through the phone.
And I said, actually, from stage, we're here. That's Jakey Lee right over there. You don't need your phone. He's right there.
Grab some rail and go try to touch homie's leg. Like, come on, live a little bit. God.
He's right there.
That's what drives me crazy. It's like, I see folks. I had someone at a show one time, and they were, I'm kind of tall, and, was standing up front towards the stage, and this person behind me was like, "Excuse me, you're in my way."
That's a good way to start a fight.
Oh. Move. You move. It's a concert. We're all here. We're going to bump elbows. It's going to be a thing.
Get used to it.
Yeah, get used to it. I want to know more about your current projects, kind of what are you excited about right now?
I am super excited about the project that I'm in. It's a band called Kings of Dust. Great players, really, really good music. We were talking about that whole retro thing. It's retro, but it's not retro because the guys that wrote it were there when it was retro.
Got it. So they're just themselves, and it's like they're a time capsule of those vibes that they're just bringing to us now. That's awesome. Yeah, cool. What's the name of the project one more time?
It's called Kings of Dust.
Kings of Dust.
Okay. Yeah. Greg Chason from used to be in Badlands, and he was also with me briefly when I was in Red Dragon Cartel with Jakey Lee. And so Greg has that feel, he has that vibe. He writes most of the music, if not all of it, and then we get in a room and kind of flush it out. I write the lyrics and melody, and I'm really excited about it. We've tried to do this for a while, and then both of us got pulled into Red Dragon Cartel, and then we're not in Red Dragon Cartel anymore. And so I'm happy to be back to this, and I'm really hoping that this fall we get to recording the record, because the songs are all written and they're really cool.
It's really there. It just needs to get tracked. And do you guys have any music out already, or would this be your first?
No, this will be the first record.
Cool.
But we've already got, I think, 10 or 15 songs that are done, and then another 4 or 5 that are pieces, parts. So the record's all there. It's just got to be put together and tracked.
Cool.
And I'm really excited about it. And so hopefully sometime early part of next year, Kings of Dust will be on.
Hey, would love to have you guys back and talk about your project and, kind of go more in depth about the recording process and what that's like and where the songs came from. Would love to hear that.
Having Greg as a songwriting partner is really good. He writes the way I want to sing. So
That's so nice. I feel like that's important when you have other musicians that also write lyrics or write parts of the songs or have ideas about the direction of where they want it to go, like melodically.
Absolutely.
To build that around the singer's voice and have them in mind. Because when you...
It inspires you.
It makes everything better. When you only write a song for yourself as the guitarist, as opposed to playing a song and writing a song that works with everyone, whether it be in the right key, in the right range.
It's an inspiration.
And that has to be there because you have to have gives and takes, because there are some things that certain artists thrive on, certain styles that other artists don't thrive on. And you have to be willing to work together as a unit to find that sound.
Absolutely.
And that's about discovering yourself as an artist and growing as a band. And I feel like it's really interesting. I love hearing about other artists' writing processes because every band is different. Like I know Sum 41, for example, the frontman will write literally everything, all of the parts, and he won't present it to the band until it's perfect and it's done, and he tells them what to play. They copy what he plays, basically, at least on some interviews that I've seen and on a few records.
Some of that's good. That, a guy brings in a full form song. That's cool. The thing that I like about this project is, I like the way Greg writes, and I like putting my melody on what he's writing. It just seems to work, and it inspires me to do so.
Sure.
So I'm really happy about that, and the songs have just they're different than they're very kind of Deep Purple type feel, and I'm really excited about that. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, before I let you go, I do want to know a little bit more about the Alice Cooper pudding.
Yeah.
And all of that. Can you kind of give me the lowdown, how the heck did you get connected with Alice Cooper? Where the hell did that come from? And then what is Proof in the Pudding? I know it's a contest for bands and they win a free recording, right? Is that the concept?
Yes. It's all based around Alice does a charity. It's on 32nd and Thunderbird, something like that. It's called The Rock. Check out The Rock. Alice Cooper, Solid Rock. It's amazing.
Alice Cooper is such an amazing guy.
Well, it's a teen center. But the difference is instead of playing basketball and ping pong, you have guitar lessons, bass lessons, vocal lessons. You learn how to be front of the house engineer. There's art classes, there's dancing classes. It's all art based.
It's phenomenal.
And this is my 15th year doing it. I have to absolutely thank Leslie Krieger. She is the one. Leslie Krieger is the one that brought me into it and suggested that I do. She was thinking about doing this CD for it, and so we kind of came up with the concept and did it. Been doing it 15 years now. And it's just a great way to see new upcoming talent. You have to be under 20 or 25 and under, I guess. And it's a battle of the bands. That's what it is. But when there's a solo artist and there's a band artist that win at the end of this whole thing, and there's auditions and you go through the first round, you go to the second round, you go to the semifinals and the finals.
Right.
And if you win, you play with Alice Cooper at, I think it's at Celebrity Theater again this year.
What?
When he does a thing called Alice Cooper's Christmas Pudding. And it's 8 or 10 different artists. So there might be Ted Nugent, there might be Tommy Shaw from Styx. Last year there was Filter, Korn was there, Roger Klein and the Peacemakers have been there. Ace Frehley was there last year, which was pretty cool on my part. But it's a really cool thing. The solo and band get to play a song during that show. There's a lot of other prizes too. If you make it to the finals, then you get to record your Christmas song, because it's all Christmas based.
Sure.
You get to record your Christmas song with me, and then we release it on next year's release. So
that's awesome.
It's about 10 or 12 different, both solo and bands, that do their version of a Christmas song. It just turns out really good. I'm really happy about it because I've been doing it for
sounds
quite
like
a
good
while.
vibes all around.
And it's available now at all Zia record stores. You can get it right now, or you can go to any of the Proof is in the Pudding contest things. The next one is at PVCC on October 12th, 13th, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like Alice has just been such a statute of what you would want someone to be
Absolutely.
when
He's
you meet
amazing.
an idol or a famous musician. A lot of people don't live up to how they're built up in your head, and I feel like I've never met the man, but from everyone that I've talked to, he's awesome. He just seems genuine and authentic.
When you get to that level, I mean, what are you going to show him?
Good point.
So it either goes one or two ways. It goes where you just, you can't show me anything. Screw you. I'm a dick. Or it goes to, you can't really show me anything, but I can show you some things and they'll help you. And
right.
That's Alice.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I remember,
so cool.
I watched this documentary. God, what the hell was it called? It was like Get Hired or...
Hired Gun.
Hired Guns. Yeah, that's what it was on Netflix.
Absolutely.
And it went into the whole, lifestyle or those artists that, maybe never made it in a full-on band for whatever reason, but they're just amazing players, like vocalists and bassists and drummers and guitarists. And I remember at one point in the story, they were talking about the story of the guitarist for Five Finger Death Punch.
Yep.
And how he, kind of was going through his evolution, and at one point he was the guitarist for Hilary Duff's arena show tours.
Absolutely.
And Alice Cooper happened to be in the audience with his daughter,
Plucked him out,
and was like, this guy is amazing. Who is this rocker with these chains?
Right.
And just had like the vibe and the tattoos. Like, who the hell is this guy? And why is he playing on Hilary Duff's arena show?
And what the hell is he doing?
What the hell? And he's amazing, right? So invited him to play with his band, and obviously to be honored with playing a part of Alice Cooper's band is huge.
Yes.
And from there, he went on to jumping on the train with Five Finger Death Punch when they were first kind of starting their wave, and I think that just speaks volumes of the kind of person when he sees real talent, and I think that it's so important for those that have made it and those that, are carrying the torch to also pass the torch
and
as well.
That's exactly what Proof is in the Pudding is it's him giving back not only through the charity and through the teen center, but giving artists a chance to a huge chance to continue their art, and but again, it goes back. You got to have that work ethic.
Absolutely.
Getting the foot in the door is really the easy part. Walking through it is the more difficult one.
Absolutely. And I know we kind of touched on it a little bit with how scary it is to make that transition from full-time job to part-time job, and then to just relying on music full-time. For those that are teetering on whether or not to do that, or maybe they have an opportunity coming up, and they feel like they can do it if they just do it, what would your advice be for those folks?
I'm going to get all corny here, but there's a saying, I don't know who said it. I'll just say I said it because it's easy. I don't know who said it, but it's something I've always believed in. It's something that I, through my career as a singer and as an artist, which is still ongoing, and as a producer, and really as just life in general. There's a saying that I've always kind of lived by, actually two of them in particular. One is you have to be prepared when opportunity knocks, because a lot of times it knocks and you're not prepared for it. And again, you can't walk through the door. You can get your foot in it, but you can't walk through the door. You're not prepared for it. So that's a big one. And the other one is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So just
1,000%.
do it. Just do it. Quit. There's so many, and I see them all the time. There's so many artists that they'll go the other way. They plot and they plan and they, They've got their third record all figured out, but the first one's not done. Get it done.
Get out and just do it. I think that, get out and live it. And I think that's, a huge message of this podcast, and what we're trying to get out to there is, if you have these feelings, if you have this desire, like, go out and do it. Work your ass off, make it happen. If you feel tied to a job and you're not happy and it just sucks the life out of your soul, like, fuck that.
Change it.
Change it. You have the power. You are the master of your own domain. And I think that some people lose that. But if you work hard and you're persistent and you stay consistent to what you're truly passionate about, I think that the universe kind of manifests itself eventually.
You will not be successful if you don't try. You just won't. It's impossible.
Right.
Because then, again, even if opportunity walks right up in front of you, you're not prepared for it. So constantly be prepared for it, so when it happens, you can take advantage of it.
A constant state of readiness.
Exactly.
Always. No.
Be a ninja. That's my
Be
advice.
a ninja. Message of the show. Be a ninja. Go out and slice and dice your way to the top, and or, through your passions. Cut through the red tape. Amazing. Michael, I want to say thank you again for taking time out of your night and your day to come, share everything with us. Again, this is K-Rad Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Chris with a K. It's been a pleasure having Michael Beck on here. Can't tell you how happy and awesome this was. So looking forward to having you on again and hearing more about your projects and your journeys. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, everybody.